I've been tattooing full time for about 4 years. Prior to that, I did about a year apprenticeship. Before that, I kind of have I have a background in like fine art.
But firstly, I suppose my experience would span over a number of different industries, right? So I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry, I've worked in the IT sector, I've worked in recruitment agency like this, and in manufacturing scenarios.
Like it used to be, like if you had, kind of visible tattoos, you're not going to get a job anywhere. Now it's like, okay, maybe, I mean, I was getting served in the garage the other day, and there's a fella with a big tattoo on his hand. You regularly see staff in all sorts of restaurants with visible tattoos on their forearms.
In the retail industry, for example, if people are working in shops, they may have tattoos that are more visible than somebody if you went into an accountancy firm. There is a perception that you should be more conservative, or you should be more business-like if you're working in an accountancy firm. Whereas if you are in, a kind of a younger, less conservative type company that, tattoos and piercings and all that is more acceptable, and I think the perceptions would be different. Yeah.
The taboo about kind of visible tattoos isn't there as much as it is anymore. Sure, I'm sure in like corporation type jobs and kind of more jobs where you're going to be wearing a suit and kind of got to be ultra respectable. They're still kind of a little bit frowned upon, but I think less and less so.
When you're interviewing somebody and you're interviewing them to join the company that you're working for, so you have a responsibility to make sure that that person is going to be in keeping with the company values and the company code and the dress code, and you're thinking of all the policies, and you're thinking of the customers that you would have. And again, if that person has to be in contact with customers, like physical contact with the customers, and is out there representing your company, then I do think it would have a bearing, and I think it may turn somebody off. I think it may hinder somebody's chances of being employed, yeah.
You should be aware that it doesn't come off, and you don't want to go tattoo. I mean, we don't tattoo hands or faces or necks in the shop unless you're, it's on a kind of case by case basis. But it's really like if you aren't heavily tattooed, we're likely to kind of not tattoo you in some really exposed areas like that.
My experience would be that depending on the type of role the person is going into would depend on your reaction to the location of a tattoo or not. So if somebody, for example, was going to work in the manufacturing area and they had tattoos on their hands or on their arms that you could clearly see, it wouldn't be an issue, because they wouldn't be going out representing the company. They're going down to do a job, and once you're satisfied that they are capable and competent to do that job, the tattoo is not really an issue. However, if they are going into, say, a sales type role, or if they're going to be somebody who's going out to represent your company and represent the kind of ethos and the philosophies of your company, the location of a tattoo would probably have more of a bearing. Like if it was, say, a tattoo on their neck or across their face, or if it was something that was very obvious and very blatant, it may become a factor. It may be perceived to be aggressive, or maybe perceived to be inappropriate or not in keeping with the company values, or whatever the case may be. So I do think it would have a bearing, the location of the tattoo and the job that they're going into.
Like I say, the whole kind of public perception of tattoos has changed. I mean, I think like kind of popular shows like Miami Ink or LA Ink or whatever, and a lot of different tattoo shows on now since then as well. I think they've done a lot to kind of demystify tattoos for people. Like before that it was like people would be like thinking, what, like I want to get a tattoo, what's going to be like. If I go into a tattoo shop, it's going to be like some seedy kind of little shed or back street kind of like place with all crazy people hanging about, and then they see it on TV and go, it's kind of a professional, clean environment, and it's not so scary. And
like even looking at, say, you're looking at the X Factor, and you have, Talisa has this tattoo across her arm, and Cheryl Cole has tattoos here, and it's become very trendy to have the barcode on your neck, and all those kind of things.
And of course, then the more people that have tattoos, celebrities and that, like the more people want, people kind of. I think that's changed. A lot of more footballers and movie stars that are running around with tattoos.
David Beckham is, practically head to toe in tattoos at this stage, and you see all the footballers now are, a lot of them are, choosing to get tattoos, and you can see the younger guys are emulating that, or young lads who are out playing soccer want to get the type of tattoos that they have. And singers as well, we'd have singers who would have the barcodes or various types of tattoos that young people want to emulate, and I think it has a big factor in it.
They're the kind of people that people look up to, so people want what they have, and I think that's kind of made it more popular.
If it's in an industry that is trendy and is looking to appeal to the younger market, or looking to appeal to artistic people, then I think it would be potentially an advantage if somebody has a tasteful tattoo.
For some people it's a big decision. For some people, different people are like, some people are like in the spur of the moment, Some people do things on impulse, and some people think about things for, some people will come in and say, I just decided to get a tattoo today, and some people will be like, I've been thinking about this for years, So different, for everyone,
Well, all I know is that we started a study back at the University of Hawaii in the 90s when people were, when tattooing was getting very popular again. And it was getting, to be almost mainstream, along with a lot of other body modification kinds of stuff. Trend, I won't call it a fad, because it's certainly, this is now 20 years later, and here we are still, seeing a lot of heavy body modification. So this trend appeared to be, this very erotic thing. But what we found out was that there were oftentimes spiritual motivations, and a lot of times people were marking, significant points in their lives, like the first time they'd had sex, or when not so much when they reached puberty, but a lot of the same kind of developmental milestones that more so-called primitive cultures would have been engaging in. And so the trend became known as modern primitivism, and that's why, there was a lot of use of tribal themed tattoos and that sort of thing. But what we found, besides the fact that yes, there were a lot of sexual motivations, but there were as many nearly spiritual motivations. But there are also motivations that have to do with the fact that Jesus seems to be a popular thing. And so people do it because that makes them look like they're part of this group that kind of thinks in a different way, or maybe did in the origins of it. And then there's a lot of belonging kinds of tattoos in certain types of subcultures, like the rockabilly folks will all have similarly themed tattoos right out of the 40s and 50s. So it's a quite diverse set of motivators we learned, but oftentimes they're motivations that have deep meaning, in some way, either sexual or spiritual, or connecting with another
Yes, I mean the more conservative ones, again, you know, you may think twice about it if they have a tattoo, but I found that in my experience sometimes, you know, it would actually be brought up. They would say, you know, what's the message behind your tattoo, or what's the story with your tattoo, if it's something that's very visible, or if the person is kind of making it their business to make it visible, then they obviously want it to be seen, you know, for some reason. But I don't think there is a particular profession where you would say it's not acceptable, full stop.
What's really behind it from a psychological perspective is the fact that conformists see those who get tattoos, particularly those of us who you know, display those tattoos, they see that as you know, pretty extreme nonconformity, and they you know, that's what they're reacting against, because they're, you know, so, you know, very conformist. So it represents what they're not, you know.
I do think there probably would be a shift in people's perception though of tattoos, because I think they're becoming far more commonplace. Whereas when I started out like 14 years ago, tattoos wouldn't have been, you know, so popular, I suppose, as they are now. So I think they would definitely be more acceptable now than they were back then. And particularly actually in women, because years ago you wouldn't have seen tattoos on women, you know, whereas now they're starting to come in with the little stars, or, you know, maybe their child's name on their wrist or that kind of thing. So it's definitely becoming more common, and I think people are just accepting it more.
Say the whole kind of public perception of tattoos has changed, and that kind of applies to like, you know, managers and employees as much as it does, or I mean employers as much as it does you know, anyone else. So
Right.
well, maybe not as much as, but you know, I don't think it's as big a deal as it used to be.
I think it would take a lot for them to be completely accepted. I think they will always have, well, for a long time, I think they will have a kind of it'll stir up some kind of connotation that the person is, again, depending on the tattoo, it might kind of stir up some kind of perception that the person is a little bit outside of the rules, or, you know, is a little bit more adventurous than maybe you might need them to be if you're choosing them for a particular role, like for example the accountancy role, or some kind of role that you need somebody to be in strict adherence. Now that would be just a perception. A person with a tattoo could just equally be as competent or equally as in keeping with rules as anybody, but it's just that perception that it can bring with it. So I think it would be a number of years, I would say, before tattoos would be completely acceptable in all professions.